She is on a mission to get us women stronger from the inside out, starting from the very bones we stand on.
The value that I attached to that goal I was striving for just diminished with time. And I almost got to the point of, well, if I don't get there, I don't get there, I don't mind.
Getting into midlife and osteoporosis and menopause and perimenopause, all these things were not talked about earlier a lot. But now that the women are starting to say, hang on a second, I'm having these symptoms.
Like, I was lifting these sorts of weights at the gym 15 years ago, and I've gone back to the gym and I can't do it. Well, in the same way your skin has changed in that time, and your hair's changed in that time, in the colour, your internal, tissues have also changed, your bone has changed. And if we don't do things to preserve and maintain as much as we can, then we'll, doesn't matter how much you do.
Nobody comes to us and, hey, now look after your bones. Yeah, people tell you there's a lot about aesthetics. Let's look after our skin and everything. But now coming down to, yes, look after your bones. Welcome to Her Own Narrative. And today's guest is no ordinary doctor. She is on a mission to get us women stronger from the inside out, starting from the very bones we stand on. Dr. Kemi is passionate about bone health, mobility, and movement. Welcome.
Thank you very much. Thank you. I'm glad to be here.
Great. So let's talk about where you started your journey, what defined you, and what are you claiming, what are you reclaiming? Let's see, because the chat we had, it was the motherhood that redefined your identity as a medic, and now you're in a space where you're saying, hang on a second, I'm ready to reclaim the education I had, the training I've had, the background I've had, and I'm going to create my own space.
Yeah.
So tell us a little bit about what is your mission?
Okay, so my background, as you've alluded to, is as a surgical trainee. I'm a doctor, and I spent over a decade training to be an orthopaedic surgeon. Along the way, I had 4 children. In actual fact, at the point at which I made a change in my career, I was pregnant with my 4th. That obviously, as you know, brings its own challenges when you're doing any job. But I think especially when you do a job which has quite unsociable hours, shift patterns of work, nights, weekends, and you're juggling very young children who have, needs, not least needs in the home and, the support that they need, but also education, school. And so that was very challenging. And I think, again, as women, we do carry the majority of the workload, mental, sometimes physical as well, especially when kids are young. I was a breastfeeding mum for all my kids, so that also meant that my sleep was not the best for a long time, and all that meant that I was struggling for a long time without realising it. I was in a specialty which was heavily male dominated, and I felt this pressure to match up to the guys. Anything they could do, I could do just as well. Orthopedics is a very physical specialty. You're fixing broken bones, you're literally using hammers and chisels and saws and drills. So there was a physical strength involved. There was the being in a space where you're immediately othered as, for your gender. Not necessarily people actively going out their way, but people are just not used to seeing orthopedic female surgeons. Things are better now, I'd say, but as you see in the world, it's not perfect. And so I left that career in a way that what probably left me feeling that there was an element of failure, just because, I was near the end. I had put in 10, 11 years into training, and I was at the final hurdle, exams. And for most people, they would say, and lots of people did say to me, just push through the final bit. If you have to slow down, take a breather, just come back to it, finish it, and then everything will be easier. But at some point, you have to consider, you have to take stock, you have to audit your life and say, where is this heading? Even after the finish point, is this going to give me a lifestyle that gives me quality time with my kids and my family? Am I going to be able to serve people in the best way that I can? Or am I just going to be fighting fires, going from one struggle to the next. And I think I chose at that point that my mental health, my physical health, actually was more valuable than any title, and the title of a surgeon. So I think externally, more people perhaps saw it as me kind of bowing out prematurely. But the relief that came from making that decision, it was a weight. And you don't realize you're carrying a load until you take that load off. And instantaneously, literally within the day or two, and it's a great feeling. And I think sometimes as women, when we're struggling without realizing it, you need something to just take off that load, and it's making the hard decisions sometimes.
I love that, what you just said. You're saying, you took a step back, you audited your life the way you said it. I love the way you put it. But there were external noises. There were external noises saying, why are you copying out? Why are you doing this? But you listen to yourself. You listen to your gut. You said, no, I'm going to redefine the way I think about things, and it's not what you are portraying me to be. And that was a relief. Relief in itself. The load was off. You shed off that load. And that does... You used a word failure earlier, and I don't think there is anything failure. But just because you used it, did it somewhere bring that feeling of say, damn, I'm a failure now? Or did you think, you know what?
I think I used the word really almost as an external, like if you had that external voice saying, we all have the one or two or multiple internal voices. There's the one that say, no, it's okay, be kind, this is a voice that you would use to talk to other people. And then there's the other voice saying, pull yourself together. So that wasn't necessarily my central belief, but that was definitely a factor. And that's probably why I stayed several years longer than I would have otherwise if I'd been able to allow the true voice to speak out more loudly and more boldly. And I think I was fortunate, I think within the professional space, I think most people would say, it's not hard, just push through. But majority of those people didn't have 3 kids. And if they did, they weren't the primary caregiver for those 3 kids or 4 kids.
They're not you. Everyone's different. Listen to yourself. There is only one you. If your gut is telling you something, and you're so right, so many of us are in a place for so much longer than we should be because we're not listening to our internal voice, our external, the negative, the apprehensive voice is shutting down the voice, which is actually saying it's not true voice.
And another thing that was happening, I think, at the time is that the value that I attached to that goal I was striving for just diminished with time. And I almost got to the point of, well, if I don't get there, I don't get there, I don't mind. And really, everything was coming together. And I had some incredible people around me, friends, family, and some people who could see the effect. And, that just points to the importance of community. I had friends who would say, you know what, just sleep or come and sit with your kids, or friends who would come, have a strong faith, would come and pray with me and say, look, we can see what this is doing. People who would pray on my behalf and say, what are you doing, God? Like, why is this happening? Why, this is something that should just, this person deserves to have this next step or deserve to move on. Why, I was struggling with my exams at the time. But yeah, I think the support was invaluable, and the support predominantly, if not, apart from one voice I recall, predominantly came from the sphere outside of that environment, outside of the professional environment, because in any male-dominated environment, whether it's business or medicine or teaching, male success is very masculine. And I think by that I mean male success means you accomplish it, you finish it. It doesn't necessarily value
the journey.
It doesn't value the journey. It doesn't say, oh gosh, you're running the same race, but you're carrying 3 times the load we are. Yeah. That's incredible. Yeah. It's just, why aren't you getting to that finish line? Why aren't you getting that medal? The medal is all that matters. And I think all those thoughts were in my head, but they weren't crystallized as much as they became once I was out of it.
You've said there's something very interesting, because I did come across something recently. They're saying women are burning out because they're competing with men to accomplish the same. why are we competing with men to accomplish the same? Because what they are different to us, we are different to them. What our journeys are totally different. The loads we are carrying are different, not less or more, but it's just different. So how can we say, I want to match you? I can't match you, but I want to have my own way of success. I want to have my own success story. Who defines that goalpost for me? Who defines what medal looks like? What is the trophy is what I make that trophy to be, isn't it?
Yeah.
So coming back to bone health, your orthopedic side, and you being a woman in our own midlives now, how passionately you feel about us women, getting into midlife and osteoporosis and menopause and perimenopause. All these things were not talked about earlier a lot. But now that the women have started saying, hang on a second, I'm having these symptoms. I want to talk about this. But then there is a cure and there's a prevention.
Yeah.
And I like what you said, Dr. Kemi, is you are on the preventative side.
Yeah.
So tell us, what should we do to keep our bone health? Because I don't want to end up with broken bones in my old age.
Well, it's more than broken bones, because, when most of us project our future, we probably are looking at a picture of someone who's able to move from one room to the next, someone who can get themselves to the toilet and back, someone who can go on holiday freely, walk through the airport. We're not picturing someone who's struggling just to take care of their own personal habits day to day. We're not thinking of someone who actually has to say, well, actually, I'm sorry, I can't meet you because I'm in too much pain. We're not thinking of someone who can't stand long enough to cook a meal. So it's as much about the simple things as much as a big dramatic broken hip, broken leg. And I think my focus is about quality of life as much as preventing the major traumas and fractures. That yes, no one wants to break a bone because it's painful. It stops everything, and you just hope and pray everything heals and that you have good function at the end of it. So I think for me, and I speak as someone who's seen the other side, seen elderly people who are incredibly frail. And that's not just from an orthopedic standpoint, that's also from a general practice viewpoint. There are those patients who can't leave their homes and they need home visits, who need to have carers 4 times a day. And it's not always your orthopedic complaint that brings that about. There are lots of conditions. And we're very fortunate to retain our health as we get older. But there's a lot we can do to be proactive about it. And in terms of your bone health, we enjoy the maximal strength of our bones in our sort of late 20s, 30s. After that, there is a steady decline. And I'll often say to patients when they come, and some patients are just surprised, like, I don't understand. I was lifting these sorts of weights at the gym 15 years ago, and I've gone back to the gym and I can't do it. Well, in the same way your skin has changed in that time, and your hair's changed in that time, in the colour, your internal, tissues have also changed, your bone has changed. And if we don't do things to preserve and maintain as much as we can, they will, doesn't matter how much you do, 100-year-old bones are going to be 100-year-old bones, but they can be the best condition for 100-year-old bones you can have if you do certain things. And those things really are loading your bone to stimulate, to reduce the rate of bone loss and to stimulate bone regrowth, because your bone is in a constant state of equilibrium. There's cells which are eating away bone and there's cells which are laying it back down. So you want to try and address that balance in your favour. And equally your muscle as well, you lose muscle mass. So my kids love I'm going to forget the name of it now, the Transylvania, Hotel Transylvania.
Yes.
So they go on the cruise, and there's the old man who's the 3 witches are sort of vying for his attention, and he's got big upper body, he's kind of got twigs for arms and legs. That's what happens as we get older, we lose our muscle mass. So we need to maintain it, and we do that by, there's a big vogue for strength and resistance training. It's just to stop your muscle cells shrinking and disappearing and being replaced by fat. So, and it doesn't all have to be about work, and I think that's what I'm recognizing. I think when obviously having 4 kids does things to your body.
Of course, even one does a lot to your body.
Does things to your body,
Yeah.
and certain things you really don't like, and so you start to think, all right, I need to get back into it, and you want to build your. A lot of the focus in exercising is about how you look. But I think there's enough now to say there's as much about how you feel. And beyond that, it's also about how you function and how you move. So it's no point doing loads of exercises and still struggling to get up from the sofa after you've watched a film. So what I am sort of putting forward is not just the strength and the resistance and the maintaining muscle. It's also other things like maintaining your balance as you get older, reducing the risk of you falling and breaking a bone, and also the sort of psychological benefits that you get from maintaining your activity. You want to be an active 60, 70, 80-year-old. You don't want to be sedentary, and that only comes if you put habits in place that you continue to maintain. And sometimes it's hard to do that. If you've been doing it all your life, you just shrug and go, well, yeah, of course, that's what I do. But there are many people who are only active for a functional reason. So they will, I need to go get the kids, I'll go get them. If I don't have to, actually, I won't do anything. And so a lot of this has to be built into your day-to-day life. And simple things I started off doing was on the days I wasn't working, even though it's very easy and occasionally it has to be done because of the weather we enjoy in Britain, I will do the school run, I'll walk the school run both ways, and sometimes I'll extend my walk back because it's easy, free exercise. I'm not going to a gym, and if there's lifts and stairs, if I can, I'll take the lift. Sorry.
Take the stairs.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I'll take the stairs. So little things like that. I think it's more of a holistic approach to not just preventing fractures, but preserving your ability, preserving your independence, and hopefully preserving your way of life for a long time to come.
That's absolutely amazing, because it's not talked about. It's not taught to a layman either. We're not taught about these things. Nobody comes to us and, hey, now look after your bones. Yeah, people tell you there's a lot about aesthetics. Let's look after our skin and everything. But now coming down to, yes, look after your bones. So the biggest thing is move, and which is built-in exercise. Yes, we're talking about, but how it conditions down to, how it narrows down to our bone health is so important and talked about. It needs to be talked about because it's in every family. You're right, going to the cinema and people can't get up from that seat because, and I know actually old people, not old, elderly people who refuse to go to the cinema because they know the discomfort they're going to have for 3 hours or 2.5 hours. They're like, no, we can't go to the cinema. And that's not the quality of life you have. At 60 and 70, if you're feeling that because the lifespan is actually increasing, we are going to live longer and longer, we want that quality of life. So what is one thing a woman who's into her perimenopause or menopause condition, what is one thing apart from getting that exercise, move and stuff, what would you recommend we should start building up to?
I think for me, the center of many things is your core strength. So I think if you have core strength, it supports many other things. So your core strength is, people typically think of doing sit-ups, but your core strength helps your sense of stability. It helps your balance. It also powers all the other movements you do. So if you have a good core, you're more likely to be able to support your body when you're exercising, if that makes sense.
That makes sense, because there's balance in your body.
Yeah. And that strength is inherent then. And so much core activity you can do when you're not doing very much else. You don't need to go to the gym to
give me examples
to build or maintain your core strength. So simple things like, my job is quite sedentary, and prolonged sitting is not great for your back. So you need to get up and move every now and then. But that's movement, but it's not really helping your core. And your core, we've all heard, if you're going to lift a heavy load, bend at your knees, don't bend your back, but also actually just tighten. So where you can, tightening your core, and it's
Doing
not
that
just
now.
it's not just your stomach, it's
Yeah.
the muscles at the back. And you know, even in my, considering I've done like fellowship exams, you know, the theory of orthopedic surgery, which is a very intense exam, I don't think that was really highlighted. I think I can talk to you about the anatomy of bone down to the cellular level, the different chemicals that support and stimulate bone growth. I can tell you about the anatomy of muscles and nerves and which vessels supply which and where they go. But your core strength really, and you know, not wanting to kind of self-promote, but on my page there's a post that talks about day-to-day things you can do for your core. So you're brushing your teeth, so just holding your core for periods of 10 seconds at a time, relaxing. If you're sitting at that desk, again, the things you can do: sit up straight, and
let's practice.
sit up straight, bend your
Yeah.
lower back sort of into the back of the chair, and then just almost like you're doing a sitting sit-up. Okay, and you hold that for 5-10 seconds and you relax. If you're picking a heavy load, again, you're tightening your core. So you want to engage your core as often as possible. And all of that is just working those muscles, and it's very passive. You can do it through your day. Obviously, you might get very tired at the end of the day. Why am I so tired? I've done effectively 50 crunches through the day.
Oh my gosh, I might just have a six-pack by the end of the week like that.
But it's and that's what most people think. They think I'm going to work on my middle because I want a six-pack. But actually, if you work on your middle, you're going to be, if you stumble and trip over something, actually you're more likely to recover and not fall, because your core stabilizes you, and you're less likely to have back pain, which is a huge field on its own. So yeah, I think that's what I would. And again, when you look at childbirth, part of your core is your pelvic floor, and so if you're working on your core, you're also
Automatically
helping
working.
your pelvic
Yeah.
floor, and we know the kind of problems women have with that.
Yes.
So yeah, that
every
would probably be
woman,
my tip.
most women can't go on the trampoline because we just struggle there.
Yeah,
We can't
yeah.
jump. We can't do lots of fun games with our kids here. Yeah, interesting, very interesting. Let's go back to the space of where you said, I am ready to reclaim my space, because you said, you know, we were having a chat earlier, and you said there were people who was telling you, you know what you're doing right now, you know, just stick to what you're doing. You're great at being a GP now. Why do you want to go into? So what is making you want to get into this space, and, you know, being a woman yourself and struggling, and then obviously a part of you who invested her 10, 11 years in the field. Is there a part of that, bringing that
I think,
into?
I mean, to be fair, I think the people who are saying, you know what you're doing, are probably thinking more along the lines of surgery. Or you could do minor surgery. That's your forte.
Yeah.
And I think I did explore that down one track, which may still come later on, but I think that where you've invested so much time and you have so much almost thought, how can I put it? You have a lot of equity in terms of your knowledge. It seems slightly wasted not to use that. And especially when it's something which applies to my day-to-day life. You know, I'm living it. I'm trying to improve my own flexibility, my mobility, my balance, my core, all those things. And I understand why I'm doing it, and I understand the impact that has if I don't do it. It seems almost foolish to ignore the fact that I have lived experience, I have the baseline knowledge, and this is something that's so applicable to people like myself, so women over 40 and even earlier, because again we're talking about setting in place habits that you can continue. So I think that's where all those things came together. Yes, I could start doing minor surgery and doing lumps and bumps and carpal tunnels and some other procedures, but that's me kind of not really maximizing what I have potentially to offer, I think.
I absolutely love it. Let's go back into the space of being a woman. Yeah, this whole platform is about women reclaiming themselves, women rebuilding themselves, women redefining themselves. And I think as a woman, I would be wrong to say, I would be in a not be fair in saying, oh, which part are you doing? Are you redefining, reclaiming, or rebuilding? I feel as a woman, you're doing all three anyway.
Mm-hmm.
How would you put your lived experience,
Mm-hmm.
your younger self,
Mm-hmm.
and what would now Kemi standing here say to a younger Kemi who was in that operating theatre trying to be as good as Mr. X surgeon?
Very good question. Might have to give it a moment's thought. Right. I mean, here's the thing. I think I gained a lot in that time of my life. And I think sometimes when we make a change, we run the risk of discounting everything that we experienced before. And there's a risk of thinking, oh, this is what I was meant to be. But I don't think I would have the level of confidence I have today. I don't think I'd have the level of or depth of knowledge that I have today. And I don't think that this would even be an option for me in terms of my career as a GP. So nothing is wasted. Even the difficult periods, even the difficult conversations, even the having to stand up for myself and advocate for myself when things which were less than satisfactory happened, all those things were building layers. And I think what I enjoy today in terms of my being and the things I like about myself haven't been shaped by becoming a GP. They've been shaped by everything that came beforehand.
All the struggles.
Yeah.
And that's the reason that actually gives you the experience and how to navigate your life. And
I think in terms of rebuilding, reshaping, the sense of rebuilding, it's not rebuilding from ground zero. It's, okay, I've built up to this point, and then, okay, that hasn't worked. Maybe I've had to shave off a couple of layers. I've actually gained more knowledge, because I was saying to you, subjects that were completely alien to me. I was a surgeon. If I had a patient who had a women's health problem, if I had a patient who had a heart problem, I'd be on the phone to the specialist saying, can you please come look at this ECG, because I don't know what's happening. I've had to learn all of that now. So I've had to acquire a lot more knowledge. I've had to acquire a lot more skills. I've had to acquire a lot more communication. I think communication was always my strength anyway. But in general practice, there are nuances. Someone's going to come to you and ask for a repeat prescription, but actually they're being abused at home. Or, you really have to go underneath the surface and see what the hidden agenda is, and see why they are being that difficult patient, what's actually going on. And surgery was, the bone is broken, we're going to fix it. We may ask whether you have a bed downstairs. We may ask how you get about and ask about your movement. But in terms of anything else going on, that's for your GP to take care of.
Yeah, I've done my part. I'm
off
now.
Yeah, so I think this new sphere that I'm entering just brings together all, I quite like being logical, and I like having A, B, C, D, and, all those things lining up. And I think that helps in my explanation of things. I like things to be simplified. I don't like things to meander too much. Just
I love that.
Let's put it down simply.
Yeah.
But also, I think that my emotional intelligence has taken off by the path I've entered and retrained in. I think I had a good baseline to begin with, but I think it's definitely been enhanced by
amazing,
general
because
practice.
you've got a patient who you need to talk to in general layman terms and understand and empathize with and what
their anxieties are. Yes. I had a patient recently who came and she's seen the very best specialists, Royal Orthopaedic Hospital. Anything royal in it means it's premium. And so she's, seen the specialists, and she's considering surgery. Should I have this? Should I have replacement? Should I have this other surgery? And her head's spinning. She doesn't understand it. And she happened to be booked in with me. And I was able to explain the difference between the two operations she was looking at, whether she should have hemiarthroplasty, which is a half shoulder replacement, whether she should have a reverse shoulder replacement. I can't remember if those were two options, but something along those lines. And because I had a good baseline understanding, I was able to say, well, this is why they would do this operation. This is why they would do that operation. The benefits of this, benefits of that. So I think in terms of musculoskeletal problems anyway, it makes me slightly more than the average GP.
Oh, definitely.
Everywhere else, I might struggle a bit and ask my colleagues for advice. But if they come to me with orthopedic problems, say, sit down, you're in the right place.
Start this podcast with introducing you exactly that same way. You're no ordinary GP. With that depth knowledge, obviously it helps as a patient for building that trust and that, you know, that someone understands it. So, and bringing that to a very basic level of understanding, like how you've explained. I don't understand many medical terms, but for you to just sit there and explain all those things to us, it's amazing. Yeah, you know, that's what we want, and that's what it's education. We need to all educate ourselves on everything, on our health, on our business, on our kids, on our parenting, on everything. That's what education is about. And with the world we're in, social media helps so much. You can scroll, but at the same time, there is so much information out there that it gets confusing. And sometimes you do need somebody to just hang on a second. This is the problem you're having. You are 40 plus. You're having symptoms of menopause. You might have genetically
you might have a predisposition to your mum and your grandma both broke their hips when they were 60 and they've got osteoporosis. The writings are slightly on the wall for you unless you take action now, that sort of thing.
And wouldn't that be so helpful for us to actually have that knowledge and saying, okay, Dr. Kemi, so what can I do now? And that's what we all of us need to navigate our life to have a better quality of life. And it's been amazing to have a chat with you.
Thank you. Thank you.
It was really good. Thank you, Dr. Kemi, for being here with us and sharing your knowledge of bones with us. I'm definitely moving, I'm standing, and I'm going to sit, and I'm going to sit up straight and improve my posture. And for all those of us who have a lot of knowledge out there but still don't know where to start, there's always someone to hold our hand. And for women like you who are out there and telling us, hang on a second, I have this knowledge. Let's do it together. Let's educate you. And isn't that the most beautiful thing? We are out there to support each other in our own ways. Thank you for listening to this podcast, to this episode. Until next time, keep writing your story, keep writing your narrative, and nothing is impossible. Reclaim, rebuild, and redefine.